Well, good morning. This image there is from Rio de Janeiro, so I'm from São Paulo. If someone else is from São Paulo, sorry that I didn't pick São Paulo as my favorite spot, but how can you not pick Rio, right? Yeah, great. So we're thinking about what we could talk about. I'm from São Paulo, but I lived a couple of years in the US, and we thought maybe she could talk about the Latin American market, or maybe she can talk about the mobile market. But then we decided that the best thing to talk about is about my journey. And to try to show a little bit what we can do in this connected world when you have perseverance and determination. So my journey starts 25 years ago in the city of São Paulo. I was born to a great family, very, very humble family, but very loving family. And since I was very young, in Brazil, we don't have this thing that when you go to college, you leave home. Usually, you live with your parents until you get married, then you buy the house next door, and you're there forever, right? So that was the expectation of my parents, right? Little did they know that I would be a little bit more global. But great, I grew with a lot of love. And when I was a kid, I was very, very curious. I wanted to see how everything worked. And to try to understand how things were built, I kind of destroyed things, everything, right? And since the beginning, I've always loved technology and people. It's a weird combination. I've been a social nerd since I was a small kid. So I wanted to learn stories from kids, from people, and I wanted to see how everything worked. Like, I was very curious to get a CD, and how come this plays music, right? Or even a necklace, how come this closes, like when I was 3 or so. So I grew up to be very curious. And when I was 17, it got the time that I had to decide where to go to college. And in Brazil, there are some great colleges, and I set my mind to go to ITA, which is a very great engineering school in Brazil, specifically focused on aeronautics. For you guys who know Embraer, the big airplane company is just next to ITA. A lot of the talent comes from there. And ITA has a different way to apply for it. Like, they have a very different exam. You kind of have to learn everything you learn in college before to apply, because for some reason they ask all these weird questions in the application process. And you had to do a special class to prepare yourself to ITA. So it's great. It's my last year of high school, and every Saturday from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m., I'm doing these ITA preparation classes, right? Very exciting Saturday days in my third year. And then as I was doing those exams, the class was really, really big, almost as big as this auditorium. So there were like 1,000, 1,500 people trying to learn those things just in this one school. And there's 100 spots, right? So they're like, man, even if everyone that goes to ITA comes from this class, I mean, a lot of people still won't make it. So they started doing mock exams. So they were exams we would do every Saturday morning. And then they started ranking people. Just so you know, like, if you're 500 in this class, and this is just one prep class, there's only 100 spots, so you need to run, you need to learn more. And I started doing well in these exams, and this would change my life. One day, the director called me and said, hey, come to my room. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do wrong, right? So I go there, and he's like, look, you're doing great. You're gonna go, and you're gonna be able to study at ITA. But I don't understand, why do you want ITA? It's a very traditional school. And he said, it's a great school, but I don't think it's good for you. And he taught me something that would change my life forever, which is the concept that there's something that the world believes it's great for you, but there's something that is great for you, and this is the best. Because the best for you is better than what the average expects from you, right? And I said, what do you mean? What exactly do you think it's great for me? And he had this one envelope in his desk, the only thing he had in his room. And he said, open up this envelope. I think this is for you. And there was an envelope from my student that had gone through my school, and he had gone to MIT. And I'm like, oh my God, someone from this school went to MIT? I mean, as a big nerd, MIT was something I really admired, but I never thought I could apply to that. I didn't even know it accepted international people. And he said, yeah, we had a student a couple of years back that he applied, and he's now studying there. And I'm like, wait, he's American? They're like, no, anyone can apply to MIT. And I'm like, you're kidding. Like, I can apply to MIT. Yes, you can. And by the way, that's my point. You should. And I'm like, great. He's nuts. Like, I'll never make it. But OK, I should at least listen to that, right? So great. I started the process. And I learned a lot of things. Like, the application process to colleges in the US is very different than the Brazilian ones. Back then, I had no English. I still have a strong accent because I learned when I was older. But basically, I'm like, I don't have any English. I have no clue about the process, but let's try to learn. And then I learned a lot of great things. The first great difference between American colleges and Brazilian colleges is that they want to know you as a person during the application process. So they want to know your dreams. They want to know what you're most proud of, what your fears are. And this is great, but it takes forever to send all that information. So people start like 6, 7 months in advance. I had 2 weeks until the deadline. That's when he called me to talk that I should apply to MIT. And I'm like, man, this is not possible. Like, I don't have any time. And then to make it a little worse, yes, the deadline was 2 weeks from them, but there were 2 intermediate deadlines that had passed months ago. One deadline was the following. You had to interview with an alum from MIT who lived in Brazil, interview in person, like, and show him how you are. But the deadline was like 3 months before. I was out of that. And then the second part was that you had to do this multiple exam called SAT, which the exams come counted from the US. So if 50 people apply, there are 50 exams in Brazil. And again, I had missed the deadline. So literally, it was a very distant dream. And everyone said, give up. Like, even my parents. You know, parents believe everything, but they didn't believe in that. And I'm like, OK, what can I do to change the situation? Because the no is the default answer. I already have the no. And if I try, it's going to either keep being a no, or it's going to be a yes. So I have nothing to lose. It's even better if it works, or it just will keep the same. So I decided to do the following. I'm like, OK, great. One thing, I need to find this dude who lives in Brazil and can interview people. Like, he's going to help me. But how can I find him? I started thinking, I'm like, whoever interviewed with him will know where he is. So I started looking for people who had interviewed for MIT the previous years. And one good soul told me the address of his interviewer. And I'm like, this is my chance. I'm going to his house. So this is me going to his house. It is actually an Italian guy living in São Paulo, very close to my house. And I'm like, this is my only chance. So I knock on his door, and he's this nicest guy ever. And he asks me, who are you? Like, I explain. And he very nicely and politely say, this year is impossible. Like, I myself have interviewed over 30 people. I have to write reports about the people I interview. And I already send information to MIT. They pick their favorites. You need to try next year. But luckily enough, I didn't know what an interview was. Like, in Brazil, we don't have in-person interviews for college. I don't know if you have here. But since it was my last chance, my only chance, I decided to put everything I had done in that box. Like, I'm small now. I was even smaller, so the box seemed bigger. And I knocked on his door with that box. And he said, but what do you have in your hands? And I was already kind of sad, thinking it wouldn't work. So I just looked down and said, no, it was my life. But if you can't talk to me this year, it's OK. It was just a couple of things. I wanted to show you how I'm going to use the MIT education to change Brazil and change the world. But I can leave. It's OK. And I think he felt really, really bad. And he said, just come in. We'll talk. It's not, I mean, probably we don't have any time this year, but we'll talk. And he was great. Like it was supposed to be a 10-minute talk, and we talked for like 5 hours. Great. Like, the first piece was solved, but there was much more to come. There wasn't even time to celebrate, because I had to figure out these SAT exams. And then I found some information that was very, very important. Yes, I had missed the deadline to apply, but I had not missed the date of the exam. That meant somewhere in São Paulo, the exam was happening. So I found out there was this one American school in São Paulo, which was the only place ministering the exams. And again, I ran to them, and I said, you know, I'm just going to appear there. No one's going to notice. It's one more person, right? So I go there. There's like 200 people. I just go in the middle, and I'm like, hey, that's fine. I will just go in the classroom. There will be an exam for me. But then there's a woman who works there calling names, right? And she starts calling names. My name is not there. So all the 200 start moving away, and I'm there, right? Because my name is not there. So I decide to go to her, and I say, hey, I'm sorry. I wasn't in the list, but there's no but. She just says, look, rules are rules. You have to leave, because you're really in the middle of the way, and I don't like you. So I'm like, OK. So she starts moving me out, and I swear, like, the time I'm outside the gate. As soon as she starts going in again, her body becomes like the building from MIT moving away. And I'm like, man, every step that she does, it's like my dream is further away. I cannot let it happen. So I don't know from where I get this strength. And I said, you know, she's not going to notice. I'm going to go in again. So I literally like a little like this, I follow her. And then I touch her and say, look, I'm sorry, I can't go. And she wants to kill me, right? And I'm like, look, the problem is not with you. The problem is with me. I need to make sure that I try it until the end. Like, this was a big dream I had that I didn't know I had, that I didn't know was possible. I ask you just one thing. Can I just be at the door and make sure that really there was no chance for me to do anything? I swear that as soon as I see there are no exams left for me, I'll leave. I know where the door is. They don't even have to follow me. But please give me this chance. She said, okay, like I doubt there will be an exam for you, but very positive woman, yeah. But okay, you stay there. And then that very dramatic moment, like I stayed by the door looking for like a little hole in the door. And it was like a room with 50 seats, and every seat had a little exam on top. And at the time there were like 47 people, so 3 more left. And I'm like, great, traffic is horrible in São Paulo, someone won't come, right? And people started taking their seats. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's right. But then one seat was never taken. And that became my seat. That's why I'm happy. And this was crazy, right? I mean, suddenly I had an exam. I wanted to see whose exam this was. I wanted his address. I wanted to send chocolates. She didn't tell me. But I'm still thankful for the person, the invisible person that I don't know who she or he is. But basically, 3 months later, the exam would come out. And yes, I'm getting older because at the time, Kelly Clarkson was famous. It's actually playing Breakaway in the background, which was a famous song at the time. And this is me and my mom trying to press refresh at the computer because the results would come out, right? So we're pressing refresh. Oh my God, there's a message from MIT. And that same letter that my teacher had shown me was there with my name now. And it's actually kind of funny because this was 2006 and they said 2010, which is the graduation. And I'm like, oh my God, they accepted me 4 years from now. Why is that? Like, I didn't know you used the graduation. I'm like, oh my God, I did bad. But I was very, very happy. But there was one tiny detail. I had no way to pay for it. Like, no way. Tiny detail, but it's okay, we'll solve that. Just for context, it's about $50,000 a year, right? 4 years. I couldn't even pay 10% of it. But I'm like, oof, I mean, the professor who started it all, he's called Edgy. And I'm like, hey, Edgy started it all? Okay, Edgy's gonna hear now. So I decided to just go to Edgy's house, the professor, and I knocked on his door, I printed the letter, and I'm like, oh my God, I have one with my name, thank you so much. I cannot pay for it, please hire me. And he was great. Like, I started working at the school. They created 10 different jobs, so I could kind of save money for my first semester, and I also got a scholarship. But that's great, right? I get there at MIT, and there are 3 very clear things that I want to do. First thing is just explore a lot of different things in the coursework. I knew I loved electrical engineering, computer science, but I also saw college as a time to explore new things that I would love. And something cool about US universities is that you don't get into any specific courses. So it's not that I apply to be an engineer or apply to be a doctor. You apply to be an MIT student, and you can do any classes there. Even when you decide you're an engineer, you can do modern dancing, you can do Japanese, you can do everything you want inside there. And that's really cool. So my first goal was to explore and learn new passions. My second goal was to work a lot, not just as a student, but work in jobs, mainly because I wanted to see that whatever I learned in the classroom, if I like to apply that in the real world, but also because of survival, because if I didn't do that the next semester, I would have to leave. And then there was a third goal, which was to meet people from all over the world. I had never had a friend from outside Brazil. I had never even really traveled outside Brazil. And about 90 people every year from MIT are from all over the world. I had Swedish friends there. And I really wanted to see like how the world is really like. Maybe like there is a Palestine and an Israeli who are best friends and we don't know, right? I wanted to see those things and see the world from not the macro, but from a specific micro actions, right, of the people. And this was great. Like in the first goal, I took all these different classes. The ones I mentioned, Japanese, modern dancing, composition, I actually took it. I did a degree in computer science, but I also learned quickly that it was very helpful as well to learn some stuff on business administration. And one of the things I was doing, they had all these different programs, very cool programs. And they had what is called the MIT 100K, which is an entrepreneurship competition, a business plan competition. And that's the first time in my life that I hear the word entrepreneurship. I had never heard that word before. Like 8 years before in Brazil, now it's very big and in evidence, this word. Everyone's talks about entrepreneurship in Brazil now, but it wasn't a big evidence word. And since my family is not really an entrepreneurial family, it wasn't kind of what we talked during dinner, right? And then I learned the basics like of an entrepreneur. Basically, they taught us, hey, the entrepreneur is a guy who looks at the world and tries to see some need that people have and is not yet solved. And then they looked at how people try to solve it, and they understand why it didn't work. And then they go in and they design their own solution, and they iterate until it actually solves that need. Of course, I'm really simplifying things. It's much harder than that, but I love that. Like in between those lines, what I heard was, the entrepreneur is a person who creates products and services that touch lives positively, right? I'm like, this is so cool. This is what I want to do my whole life. And in fact, is what I've done my whole life, and I didn't know there was a name for it, which is great. And from there, I did like my first company. It was called Water Africa. And the whole need that we found was the need to bring water from the sources of bring water from villages that were far away. From the sources. So basically, like, we saw an issue that women in Ghana, Mozambique would spend about 20, 30 hours a week just carrying water from the sources to their villages. And not only it would get there not clean, but of course it's not efficient. And when we designed kind of a piping system that worked as a Lego, so it was modular in the sense that we could just send it and people could build it themselves. And every little module had a pipe, a little pump, and a solar panel. And it was very, very easy to build. And since it was modular, it worked in different distances. And this worked great. The only problem is that as easy as it was to build, it was to destroy. So at night, people would steal it. And we didn't think of that because we're like, we're just gonna build things, right? That's when I started a degree on business and distribution because I wanted as well to build and be able to distribute that. And it was great. So on the coursework, it was fantastic. On the side of working, I did everything you guys can imagine at MIT, like from telemarketing to raise funds to MIT, to trying to solve issues with robots, to taking classes and teaching classes, to creating exams, to working in the admissions office to try to get other great folks for the following year. So it was great. And MIT has a lot of vacations, 4 to 5 months every year. You have like 3 months during summer, January is optional, then you have breaks like spring break. And I decided that every break I would move from Boston to some other place and work as an intern in a different company, right? And it was fantastic. I lived in Seattle to work at Microsoft. I lived in Silicon Valley to work at Google. I lived in New York during the 2008 crisis to work at Deutsche Bank. And I was trying to learn, like, what are the things I love? What are the things I don't love? It was always with a lot of focus on self-awareness and what truly energizes me. But when I went to Silicon Valley, that thing hooked me up. Like, I love that place. When I was working at Google, there was something about Silicon Valley that really touched me. And I think the best way to summarize it is that Silicon Valley is the most competitive place you'll find on earth. Like, great people from all over the world go there and they try to create great products or work with people who are creating great products or invest in people who want to create great products. But they figured out that the real deal are people. So even though it's the most competitive place on earth, it's also the most collaborative place on earth. And that's crazy, right? Collaboration and competition all together. And it works quite interestingly. So I really like that. I graduated, I moved there. And the plan was to work at Google. I was actually doing a master's there. But I quickly realized that I was living a double life. And that advice that Ed had given me about don't worry about what's best from the world's point of view, but worry what's best from your heart. I had forgotten that. And what I realized is that I was during the morning, during the afternoon, I was working at Google. Since it was a master's at Google. I was kind of doing research papers. And this was great if I wanted to become a professor or to work as a researcher, but that wasn't really my thing. What I wanted was to be an entrepreneur. So during the night, I started building a solution to my fraternity. So basically, going back to the point that I wanted to meet people from all over the world, I lived in a fraternity when I was at MIT. It was super cool. It was like 50 people from 50 different countries. And it was great meeting those people, right? But there was a problem. The fraternity was organized by students, what means it was disorganized, right? It wasn't organized at all. And there was this poor guy, George, who had a list of the missions people had to do every day. So someone had to clean, someone had to put the dishes away, someone had to use the vacuum cleaner. And every night he would go around the house to see who had done what. And of course, no one had done anything because they forgot they had an exam. And so we built a solution to that. It's called TiskTask. Until now, it's live and people work it. But basically, it was a task management platform. We would put the names of the people, how many hours they had to do of work, what are the different tasks. And then the system itself would just distribute those tasks. And let's say I had to vacuum clean. I would get a reminder in my email in the morning, hey, you have to vacuum clean until midnight. I would get another reminder during midday. And then at night, I would get a final reminder asking, hey, Belle, so did you vacuum clean? Yes. No, but I changed it with someone, and I'll do her work the other day. Or, no, I'll pay $50. Suddenly, everyone started doing their chores, right? And it's also cool to see, like, this was a simple thing. But suddenly, like, in the first week, we had 2 people using it. Then in the first month, we had 10 people using it. In 2 months, the whole house was using it. In a couple of months, a lot of fraternities at MIT were trying it out. And I like that feeling of building something incrementally and having someone using it and giving you feedback and improving every day. So I'm like, this double life won't work. I need to go to a smaller company and learn from a smaller company. So I left Google. I actually took a leave of absence from the master's. Still 3 months left. I'll finish it. It's been 3 years. But I'll finish those 3 months. I left to go to a company called Ooyala, which is an online video platform. At the time, they had 20 people. And they were looking for a product manager, which I found it was a position that, for me, made a lot of sense. Because it's someone who takes care of the product team and interacts a lot with the engineers, but you also need to understand the market and decide on features, which are both things that I love, like technology and business. And I had a lot of fun interviewing with the guys, and I said, hey, give me a chance. I know I'm a software developer. At Google and Microsoft, I was a software developer, but give me a chance to try to learn this product management skills. And one of the founders, he said, okay, I'll give you a chance. You have a huge team of you and one more person. And it's your chance to make it work. I'm like, great, that's all I need. And to understand what Ooyala does, the best way is to understand what they do for their customers. So for example, ESPN, the sports channel, is one of Ooyala's customers. And the whole experience that you can see video through all devices, right? From Android to iOS to connected TVs to desktop, that delivery experience was done by Ooyala, as well as the branding of the player, as well as real-time analytics, so they know if you skip from 10 seconds to 20 seconds, as well as monetization strategies, so you can pay for the video or watch an ad. So this whole platform of video delivery with cross-platform delivery, this was one of my projects at Ooyala, the one for ESPN. And I loved it. And I saw the company grow from 20 to 200 people. And it was an amazing experience. And I got very lucky because in a very technical environment like Ooyala's, it's hard to find new product managers because it has to be the people that love designing new features and love coding and love doing meetings. Who likes both of these, right? I mean, you may even find people who are great at both of them, but whoever loves coding don't want to go to an interview or don't want to go to a meeting or anything like that. And whoever loves the meeting parts don't usually like the coding of the little features and the details. So in 2 years, we couldn't find any other product managers. And I used to tell them, no, just put the new people in my team. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So in the end, I had 27 people in my team. It was really cool. I was 22. And I had a blast. This was great. And then they actually joined the MIT degree, so I could finish the master's there. And the last 3 months I had to do it in Boston. And I didn't want to lose Silicon Valley. So since it was a decision time, I said, hey, I'm going to see what my options are. Maybe I'll go back to Boston and finish the degree, but let me see what my options are here in Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley is all about advice and mentoring. And one of my mentors said, hey, there's a guy who has a similar story to you. Go talk to him. He may have some useful advice. You know, like 20 years ago, he was in your shoes. Maybe he can tell you a little bit of what he's done, and maybe this can be helpful. And I went there. I went to meet with this Argentine entrepreneur, a guy I really, really admired. He was like 36, had done 4 companies, sold them for over $1 billion, and a very, very humble background from Argentina. I'm like, great, I'm gonna meet this guy. I don't even know what to ask him, right? And we have this great talk. And he explains to me that his last company didn't work. He was starting a new company. And in my mind, I made the connection. I want to start this company with him. But I couldn't just say it right away. He would think I have no options in my life, right? So I'm like, I knew what I wanted, but I won't tell him yet. So at the end, as a good businessman, he says, hey, let me know if I can help you in any way. Like, I'm here and I want to help you. So I'm like, okay, I know the answer, but I'll tell him tomorrow, just to pretend I didn't just think about this. So next day, I go to his office. It's 7 a.m. He's arriving at 8. I'm already at the door. And he's like, hey, Bel, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I have an answer to you. And he's like, which answer? To your question. Which question? How you can help me? I know how you can help me. And then it's like, okay. And I'm like, I want to be your co-founder in this new company. Like, I know it's about financial services. It's not the thing I know the most, but it's mobile world as well. And I love that a lot. Since 2007, when there wasn't really crazy mobile smartphones out there, I worked at mobile in Microsoft, and I said, I really like this world. Give me this chance. And I mean, he would really hate me or love me, right? It's one of those things that you either lost him there or he liked you. And luckily enough, he looks back and he's like, oh my God, you're like me in skirts. I would have done the same. We'll make it happen, right? And then mid-2011, we started a company called Lemon Wallet, which is an app that would create a replica of your wallet on the phone. So it would take pictures of everything you have in your wallet, from credit cards to loyalty cards to receipts. And we would digitize all that information and add a layer of intelligence. So you would have a smarter wallet. So it would tell you about patterns of spending and how to spend better. It will tell you about loyalty points. It will tell you about suspicious activity. And Lemon Wallet still exists now under the name of LifeLock, because we were acquired by LifeLock late last year. But Lemon was growing a lot. And in the end of 2011, we had 1 million users. And I was learning a lot, not just from Lemon, but from everything I had done before. And I had this thing that I wanted to go back to Brazil, or at least bring to Brazil the things I was learning. And I decided to write a book. And this was just like a kid's project, right? I mean, I wrote with my heart. I put down 20 stories of little things that really helped me, like from talking to that person that was 20 years ago in your shoes, Wences, to finding the little things that energize you. So when it's 3 a.m., you have 1 more hour of energy. So very, very simple things that you think you know it. Once you learn them, you think you've always knew them. But if you actually look back, you realize that they were really life-changing, even being simple. So I read a book about this, and I said, you know, I don't want to make anything complicated, so I'll just write it as a PDF. I'll get some friends to do some illustrations, and I'll put it available for free on my website. Like, my mom knows my website at the time, right? So I'm like, great, I'll write that book. So I wrote this book. I call it The Girl from Silicon Valley, a Menina do Vale, How Entrepreneurship Can Change Lives. It's like 19 stories. And I was like, okay, I'll put the PDF on my site. And I even told my mom, hey, Mom, don't click a lot of times, because you're going to mess up the statistics. Like, it's OK if not a lot of people download. Just leave it there. And then I went to move on and work at Lemon. And 4 days later, I decided to check the statistics, right? I mean, the only thing I had done is I did a video with a mentor to talk about the project, and I put that video on YouTube. I put a link in my Facebook, which like my family knew, and I put a link on my website that like my mom knew. And 4 days later, I went to check the counter. And I thought like maybe it's gonna be like 4 digits, right? I mean, 1,000 people. And I go check it out, and it's 6 digits. It had gone over 100,000 downloads in 4 days. And I'm like, hey, this is wrong. Either the counter is messed up or my mom really clicks really fast, because there's no way, like 4 days, right? And the book goes viral, like completely viral. In the first month, it's like 400,000 downloads. It hits 1 million downloads in like 2 months and a half. The video that I did was actually like the most #1 sing video on YouTube Brazil for 2 weeks. I beat Justin Bieber, you know, like this is a big thing. This is my claim to fame. I mean, no, I'm kidding. But it's true, like Justin Bieber was second and my video was first. And this was really cool. But I started getting an internal conflict because I was actually angry at this at first, because this was supposed to be a small distraction. This was not supposed to take my life, because then people wanted to interview with me, and I'm like, I'm doing Lemon. Like, I can't. No, I'm doing Lemon. People like me because I do stuff. Like, I need to do Lemon. But then I went to check the messages. Like, I had an email that I had put together with the book. And I went to check those messages and see, well, if really people have downloaded it a lot, maybe they will have some cool messages. And mid-2012, I go there and I check the messages. And the first message there's like thousands and thousands, right? And the first message is this 92-year-old lady who read the book, and she said he's always had a dream of starting a store that sold chocolate truffles. And finally, she had the courage to do that after reading the book. And she got her best friend, which was a 94-year-old lady, and they together started this store in Campinas, a city like 2 hours from São Paulo. And she wanted me to send all the truffles to California, right? And this was like such a great story. There were other stories like from all over the spectrum, right? There was this 8-year-old kid who said, hey, you can only read the email if you promise you won't tell my mom. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know your mom, but okay, I'll read the email. And he's like, look, my mom loves writing and loves reading, and she gives me a book every week. But I feel bad telling her that I hate reading. So what I do is just I sit down with the book and I turn the pages. I'm not reading anything. And at the end, I tell her, I loved it. You can buy a different one now. But I never told her that I had never finished a book. And your book was the first one I finished. So I printed out and I gave one to her. And she doesn't know, but this is the very first book I read. And I knew my life was destroyed there, because when a distraction gets to your heart, it's over. It's not a distraction anymore, right? And Lemon is growing, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do with this? A lot of emails talk about like people getting out of drugs. I don't even mention drugs in the book. But if it worked, great, right? I mean, so I'm like, I need to do something about this. It reaches like 1.5 million downloads, and I'm like, okay, I'll do both. My co-founder at Lemon was from Argentina, so I moved to Argentina, and I said, during the week I'll do Lemon, during the weekend I'll figure out what's happening to this book in Brazil, right? And I did that for 3 months until I realized I would either die or do a bad job in one of them. And then I said, I need to pick one and do a good job. So I went back to Silicon Valley, and in this meanwhile, the book reached 2 million downloads. Lemon is still growing. We knew it was doing well. But I go to bed and I wake up thinking about those messages, and I'm like, somehow I have a voice on education. It's a book on education, you know? It's a book about being a protagonist of your life. It's a book about working hard. It's a book about no shortcuts. It's not what people like to hear. Not usually. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, you know? There's nothing. It's just like, go study, it's good for you, yeah. And I thought, this is big. If I don't use this voice for something good, I'll never forgive myself. Because it's like a clay that I can play with now, but it's gonna become hard and I won't be able to change it anymore. So 1 year ago, I decided to move back to Brazil and try to make good use of this to improve Brazil's education. So I started a school that teaches all the things that I wish I had learned in school. So it's a school to bridge the gap between what the world truly demands and what schools teach. It's called Fase Nova, and we focus on behavioral skills and specific tools to make projects happen. So our mission is to find, develop, and connect people who want to make projects happen. So we work with each of the students, help them find their true talents, their true passions. We help them develop broader behavioral skills, things like self-awareness, negotiation, communication, how to relate to people. And then once, of course, it's a lifetime to master those, but once they've got a hold of those, then we have specific courses on specific projects, how to write a book, how to start a TV show, how to open a restaurant, how to build a mobile app. And we also connect people with complementary people that may be the last step to get them to be unstuck, right? And it's been great. It's been a year since I launched it, a little less than a year. We've had 800 students presentially in 10 different cities in São Paulo. And they've started everything from CDs to books, writing books, to starting TV shows, to opening a bunch of different companies digitally and non-digitally. And most recently, like 2 months ago, I launched a website with free online courses. So the online courses, again, on behavioral and specific tools are free. And we have over 25,000 students online. So it's growing really, really fast. And it's been fantastic. Like I've never learned so much in my whole life because people are extremely talented. And it's an all ages school. So people from like 7 years old to 90 years old are all in the same classroom, which is a lot of fun. I've learned that this experience that you don't usually have together are the ones you most value. So like the kids love being with the older folks and the older folks love being with the kids. And recently we launched a new working space in Brazil. So it's an innovative office that has like a crazy glass auditorium with a co-working space and very new networking events. Like it's people talking about what's really like to be an entrepreneur. Like it's called Fail. So it says everything that went wrong because it's a little mystified, right? And we want to demystify those things. And my mission is that Fase Nova, I hope that it really go on to touch 1 billion people in the next 20 years. That's my dream. I mean, the past 2 years, we touched 4 million people with videos and coursework and the books. I wrote a second book in the meanwhile, but I hope that I can accelerate that and go global as well. And it's been a fantastic journey. I know it's just the beginning. There is much, much more to do. But I truly appreciate you guys' time waking up early and being here and listening to me, like little girl from Brazil trying to make a difference. And if you want to chat or talk, or if you want to visit Brazil during the World Cup and you want like to hang out or something like this, or visit the school, this is my contact information. And I want to thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best in your lives. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Magnus.
What a fantastic journey it's been.
You're being too nice.
But it's sort of difficult to understand from my perspective, even though I met you in Sao Paulo just a few weeks ago. What is the main reasons otherwise? Why do you love Brazil? Coming back again, being in the part of the American culture and Silicon Valley, what brought you back? What is the key things with Brazil?
Yeah, so the first thing is just the size of opportunity. Anytime there is a lack of presence of people who should be doing things like in education or health, this is also a great opportunity. So we have two things to do. We either complain and settle, or we decide to change things ourselves. And I prefer the second one. So I love this opportunity. And it's also a time in which people want to change. I mean, you've seen the protests last year. I mean, people decided that that's it. It's time to be protagonists. It's time to run things, and it's up to me to do that. So the timing was also great, and I'm trying to use this voice to change these things that should be changed by other people, but it's not really.
For a Swedish company that would like to expand to Brazil, what is the key things to think about, and what kind of industries do you think you should come from? What kind of services do you like to?
Yeah. Brazil is a fantastic place, like huge market, very, very tech-savvy people, a lot of early adoptions. People are extremely curious. And also because some things are a little harder on the bureaucracy and other pieces, people become very innovative as well, like in a very positive way. So you should know that when going there. But we have a very, very growing middle class that now has access to credit, and they're already at the point, like the class C and D, they're already looking for quality and comparing things. So it's actually a very, very interesting market to get into, because we have this 40, 50 million people now that have access to credit, are buying lots of things digitally and physically. And this may be really interesting. I think one thing to be aware of on the not so good side is there is a lot of structural things and bureaucracy that you need to learn before actually getting a hold of. So in the beginning, I wanted to just run the company from the day one I got there, but it takes a little time to structure things and learn things and do everything inside the laws. But you learn that, and then you can do it faster. It's just the beginning is a little harder.
Perfect. Did we have any comments or questions on Twitter, Johan?
Yes, we've had a lot of very positive reactions on Twitter. People are very impressed by your story.
Oh, thank you.
Impressed by your energy on stage and the way you followed your heart and didn't take no for an answer. And also, people really seem to like your slides. So much better.
Did you do them yourself?
This is Brazilian talent. So it's cool to talk about that. One of the reasons why I wanted to start Fase Nova was because there were two facts that didn't really match. The first fact was, I mean, I lived in a couple of different countries. I lived some time in Portugal as well. I lived in Argentina. And I used to say I'm Brazilian. I mean, I am Brazilian. I didn't used to say I'm still Brazilian. But when I used to go to a place and they say, where are you from? I say Brazil. And people love Brazil, right? Doesn't matter what you do, they love Brazil, you're loved. And this is a great thing. But then I used to ask people, great, they love Brazil. Can you mention 3 or 4 companies that we've built? Blank, silence. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, I mean, this is very well-educated people, right? And for some reason, our stories don't transcend the country. That's one. And then the second fact was that I've worked with people from all over the world. And sometimes, actually most times, the Brazilian people were really, really good. They had amazing talent. And they didn't know how talented they were. And I'm like, this equation doesn't close. Because we have all these talented people, but we don't have a way to get this talent and grow from the neighborhood to the city, to the state, to the country. And then these people here will know the stories, right? So that's why I wanted to start Fase Nova there and then grow to the whole world.
Perfect.
But the person,
Thanks.
But the person who did the SOAP, it's a Brazilian company. It's called SOAP, State-of-the-Art Presentations. They're fantastic.
Perfect.
They did the presentation.
Great. And one final comment.
Yes, one final question. Somebody asked, is there an English version of your book?
Not yet. I should do it. I mean, I've been running so much with the school that I wasn't able to, but it will come.
Okay, yeah. Great.
Great. Thank you very much. And you'll be joining us today here, so people have time to chat with you and the coffee breaks and later on.
Perfect. I'll be around.
Great. Thank you very much, Belle.
Thank you so much,
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you. I left the clicker there.
Perfect.